It is Wednesday, November 15th, 2017. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And, I'm like completely at a loss as far as like where to go today. I mean, I'm sure the old trusty Twitter feed will provide in the end as far as subject matter for today's show. We got lucky when we stumbled on Tether. I mean, I think that one. I've been thinking about it a lot since Monday, and I want to call it FUD, but I mean, in all honesty, the implications. Okay, when the implicit trust being bestowed there upon the parties involved, that's a lot. But we have been facing some additional scrutiny in the banking sector in various countries, and I think this is one of those places where the fuckery is being initiated. It's like, or at least the necessity for something like USDT. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, as far as like the new ones being like whisked into existence. We don't know whether or not those have cash reserves on it. I haven't dug deep enough into it. So, I'm not going to like sit here and say, oh yeah, they're definitely, they're fraud. I don't know. But the fact is, I don't know. That's not something that I want in question. I mean, I'd like something. I don't know, maybe if I looked around enough, I'd be able to find something like blockchain.info that shows like all of their cash reserves or whatever that they've got stashed on the Bitcoin blockchain. I don't know. We'll find out. We will find out eventually. I think if the GR Bufu does happen, and I see all the parts for it, the parts that would be necessary for something like that to happen. It's like if you were to take 9/11, okay? We'll just take the plane part out of it, right? We'll just say you want to collapse these two buildings as a terrorist act in the middle of New York. There would be like certain components that you would need in order to make that happen, right? And so you would need like, secret people that like have access to the buildings. You'd be able to load them up with explosives. So you need explosives too, so on and so forth. There's factors and components that you would need in order to create the conditions in order to make an event possible, right? And so that's what I'm saying with regard to Tether and whatnot. It's not necessarily that Tether is GR Pufu or something like that. It's it's like, in order to conduct a bank robbery, you'd probably need a gun. Well, Tether would be able to be used as the gun, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? It's like I sometimes jokingly call a gun a wireless hole punch, because that's what it is. It's completely wireless, no wires involved, but it puts holes in stuff at range. So it's a wireless hole punch. Now, it just happens to be that people use them to put holes in living things, but, sometimes they use them to put holes in non-living things too. So, again, it's just that the gun is a tool, and that's what I'm saying with regard to Tether being a factor in the GR Bufu. It's the type of tool you would need in order to be able to bring tokens into live markets that weren't actually worth anything, that were fraudulently evaluated but accepted as legitimate backed currencies or tokens or some such, and traded against as such. And then the fraud be executed and only one party is out the money and the other is out the door. See what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying with regard to the GR Bufu and like how I expect that kind of thing to happen. I am expecting it to be a digital event that is like entrenched within all legacy markets and all crypto markets, to the extent that it's with its I don't know how to say this, like the component parts, like for everybody that's involved with it, so it's like if you were to execute it via segregated witness or a lightning network, you would have to have the a L2 level participant compliant with your endeavor. You know what I'm saying? That's where we're going with that. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and throw into some music because we have not done a first dance yet, and we do talk coin and play the metal on this show. And I haven't played anything off 0 Days for a while, but I didn't want to start off with Prong. I mean, I do play their stuff on the show quite a bit, but that's not really where I want to start the evening off. I am thinking Megadeth, though. And what the hell? Peace sells, but who's buying? And so let's go ahead and get that one up. Here we go. First dance here on Coin Metal. Peace sells, but who's buying? And my apologies on that. Went over just a little bit long. Unfortunately, I didn't have anything ground up to throw into the bong, so it's like, you gotta fucking handle these things first. But I did remember exactly what I wanted to talk about today, because it actually isn't Tether. I thought that we covered what was important, and we dug in as deeply as we could for the 3 hours that we did have available to us on that. But you know what? I don't do this show so that I'm thinking of for you. I'm just doing the show to maybe point some stuff out that you're not looking at. Maybe it's kind of getting by your notice, And I swear I want to put together like a montage of everything every article that refers to the mining centralization in China. This has been it's been a really big subject in crypto for the last couple years, and I've been telling everybody the entire time I've been doing this show one consistent thing: this too will change. This too will change. We will not continually have a dominance of mining in China. Something will change. Either somebody will come up with new hardware, the Chinese government will change their energy policy with regard to miners. Something will change. And it's really important to keep that in mind, especially because the segregated witness lightning network people, their big thing is that mining can't scale, and they point at the number of miners in China and the dominance of them there, and they throw a fit about that. They're like, oh look, China has the majority of the hashing power. It's all Chinese miners. They've got a monopoly. It's centralized. It's gonna be that way forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. It's not true. It's not true. I mean, I've been in this space for quite a little while, okay? And I really didn't pay attention. I really didn't pay attention to mining after I did my experiment with CPU mining until I started doing GPU mining. And as soon as that got on to ASICs mining, I kind of ignored it too. But I mean, I unlike a lot of people, have in my mind that I'm going to be doing this again soon, like very soon. So it's something that I would like to maintain in the public space. But I've been around long enough that I've seen multiple, how should I say this, multiple fluctuations in mining where there was the GPU miners, and then the ASIC miners came out, and everybody threw a fit because they're the fucking ASIC miners. People are still throwing a fit because of ASIC miners. And you gotta remember that the hardware development behind this is lagging. Okay? it's lagging behind market demand. It's not that the public doesn't want to mine. It's that IBM, Intel, Apple, Microsoft, all the big players that should be all over this like fucking white on rice, are busy trying to create their ways to interact with the blockchain that disintermediates you and puts them in the position of a third-party intermediary. And this is wrong. It's the wrong-headed kind of thinking when it comes to how to push this tech forward. Because the market is telling you that if you can make the mining hardware cheap enough for the average person to be able to build from scratch from zero, a dual video card system to a 4 video card system to they're running 10 miners to 20, they can scale up to where it is a part of their everyday life to be watching their hashing power. That's their quote-unquote job. I mean, that to me is like the fantasy there is that, and I imagine that not every single person will mine. I think that's something that people get hung up on too, is that, the idea that by trying to open up the market more, you're going to reach a saturation point such that it's not really worth anything for you to do it. Now, I would argue against that. See, I think what needs to happen is, pardon me, that Microsoft or like Apple or one of these guys that's already developing, gaming consoles. And I've talked about this before on the show, this idea. And it's like this, that you have a console system. It's got a base operating system. It's like maybe $200, right? And it's got some onboard hashing power, maybe 4 onboard miners that you can assign to whatever cryptocurrency you want, right? But then you have additional bays on top of it, right? And they're much like the old school cartridge video games, where you got the slot on the top and you take the cartridge and you slam it down in there, and it's got a little card, similar to a video card as far as the interface goes, and it's got a receptacle down below the flap, the dust cover, that when you push it down through there, it connects to the system and you're able to play again, right? So with this system, the idea I have is this, that you can program it to mine whatever fucking cryptocurrency you want that it's compatible for, or that, its algorithms are capable of running, or the hardware is capable of running the algorithms. You know what I'm saying? So it's got maybe 5 to 8 bays per box, right? And where the real upgrades happen is on the cartridges themselves. And with that, like Microsoft would either have like a subleasing program, because you're giving the thing space, you're giving it electricity, and you're giving it bandwidth, but it could be providing you a payout, right? And it's like Microsoft and Sony and all these guys, they've got this vision of creating an immersive reality for you. That like you've got your Xbox hooked up to your TV and you can do fucking everything through it. My cousin is a prime example of somebody that has completely immersed themselves in this type of way. Where he's playing video games with people all over the fucking planet. He's going to YouTube and watching videos. He's going to Netflix and watching movies. He sits there and watches whatever shows he wants to watch and all. The point being that he doesn't have to go outside the Xbox environment to enjoy about 70 to 80% of everything that other people enjoy on the internet. including, web searches, YouTube, so on and so forth. I'm sure at least someday there's going to be a fucking app. If there isn't already, there's going to be an app on Xbox that allows you to trade cryptocurrencies live. Wouldn't that be fucking awesome? But so, check this out. Like, the idea I have is this. Rather than Microsoft having to bother with all the MSB licensing and all that other bullshit, they just make the hardware and like a base operating system for it. And, they market it to their Xbox users. They say, hey, for another $200, you can get in on providing the payment network for the Xbox network. So all of the payments that are happening on the system, both from in-game deeds, so say your team wins some sort of championship, you could actually do some sort of cash payout, and all the transactions would be happening across this network. Now, of course, Microsoft would have their own hardware and whatnot that they're maintaining it, just so that there is a base transaction system going on that people can get into. But then in addition to that, you have, like I said, this mining console that you connect it to your Xbox, and you're able to interface and assign it to whichever cryptocurrency you want it to mine, and you get some sort of actual cash cut that you can take out of the Xbox system. That you'd be able to do all that QR scanny kind of shit that we can do with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, where you could be taking payouts to your physical wallet, you could be taking payouts to cold wallets, all kinds of good stuff. You'd be taking payouts directly to exchanges, and I would assume you'd be able to do that directly through the app. And see, this is the thing that bugs me, is like, all of what I'm talking about is entirely possible. The only thing I see is a lack of willingness to actually participate in a way where you do the fucking work and you fucking get paid for it. It's like people want to get paid, but they don't want to do the work. And then people want you to do work, but they don't want to pay you. It's like, I don't fucking get it. It's like we have the option, the capability of working for other people without really working directly for them, just providing a service without being so intrinsically tied to a specific company that we can't bail at any time and move our confidence in our hardware to another. So anyway, I got this article here on Cointelegraph, and it's by Joshua Althauser, our good friend Joshua. And I say good friend because he's actually very good about the way he writes his articles, but clearly, penis. Singaporeans turn to Bitcoin mining. Phenomenal increase in mining rig sales. And this was written approximately 6 hours ago. Many Singaporeans have recently caught up with the Bitcoin craze. They turn to Bitcoin mining for passive income, causing a sharp increase in demand for mining rig and graphic cards in the country. Sharp increase in mining rig demand. Channel News Asia reports, and we're going to click on that, how one Singapore-based mining rig manufacturer has experienced sharp increase in sales in recent months as the demand for cryptocurrency mining computers has increased more than 100 rigs per month as of November 2017 from about 15 in July. Jesus Christ! That's like an 800% increase. Increase in cryptocurrency exchange users. The demand does not only end in mining rigs alone. In fact, cryptocurrency exchanges such as CoinHeco and Coin have both experienced double-digit growth in the demand for cryptocurrencies since the beginning of this year. The spectacular growth of the various digital currencies in 2017 has led to a high demand for mining hardware in Singapore and around the world. The influx of new investors has consequently helped pull the Bitcoin price as it increases between $6,000 and $7,000 in mid-November of 2017 from around $1,000 in January. I want you to think about that a moment. That's only 10 months. With such phenomenal growth, a lot of people have turned to mining to generate a passive income and become involved in the cryptocurrency market, with the growth rates showing no signs of slowing down. Well, bam! We are seeing a shift, people. Seeing a shift. We are witnessing it with our eyes. You know, it's like, I look at these articles, I'm not looking at all of the story that they're trying to tell here. Okay, I look at the factors that they're communicating. Okay, this is happening in Singapore, so they're pretty close to Hong Kong. That's a pretty big financial center, and we're seeing a shift away from the United States. But China itself is experiencing another issue, and as a matter of fact, I've got I've looked up a few articles about this, and I gave up my browsing session for one reason or another. I think I had to do some sort of restart for system updates or some shit. I can't remember. Point being that there is a shift going on in the mining sector, and I keep telling you guys, just get the fuck into it. Don't worry about what CoinWars tells you is the profitability. Do you believe in the coin? You know, do you believe in Bitcoin as it existed back before SegWit, or do you like the segregated witness business? You know, which version of Bitcoin do you want to mine? Which ones do you want to flag support for? You know, that's your decision to be making. But you know, your participation on the mining end, that increases the value of the coin. It makes it harder for everybody else that was involved to get the coin. So they have to invest in hardware. And when they invest in hardware, that makes hardware cheaper. As you invest in hardware, that makes hardware cheaper. It's that whole... Somebody was trying to convince me on Twitter the other day that Moore's Law was bullshit. I about fell out of my fucking chair laughing. Moore's Law is a constant. It's a fucking reality. And I mean, I don't know how to put this. The way that Moore's Law is a reality is this: like the processors that they're coming out with right now, the 7 nanometer processors. When I was working in a chip fab, we were working at I think it was 19 nanometers. So think about that. That was back in 2000, right? 19 nanometers back then to 7 nanometers now. And actually, I think they were even bigger than that. I want to say it was like 28 nanometers or some shit like that. It was huge by comparison to today's measurements. It's like 1/3 now. And I can guarantee you the processors that we have right now do like 2 to 3 times as much work, if not way more. You know, like 6-10 times work. You know, like when I was working in die manufacturing, we were at like, I don't even think we were at DDR2. I think we were still doing SD-RAM. I mean, this is like, I want to say they were like SODIMMs or something like that, but dual inline memory modules. This is a long time ago, in 2003. Or I mean, in 2000, as far as like the spec goes. So, you know, they have to be manufactured one, and then they have to cycle out to the market, and then they have to not be the standard and have a new standard coming in. Well, this particular fab was going from 220 die per fab I mean, per wafer, up to 12-inch wafers. And they were looking at the investment of having to do that, and that basically sunk that fab because they couldn't put in a unit affordably and actually make money on making 12-inch wafers that would have hosted, I think, like 4 times as many die, and they would have been twice as small, and it was fucking ludicrous. Anyway, point being, that's Moore's Law in action, okay? It's like a retool is like a physical representation of Moore's Law being played out. You know, it's like from the time you set the concrete and you put the machines in their particular departments and you subsect everything and you get your statistical process control all mapped out and you got all the bottlenecks out of your system, and it's just one continuous process of 144 steps. You've got about 2 years before you have to do a retool because the standard changes. Now, you can't change with every iteration change. You can only do like macro changes. I mean, you can do micro changes on your individual level, but like you couldn't do things like an entire nanometer spec change. I don't think. Not without doing like serious retooling. You know, like new computers, new heads, new everything. But that stuff costs money. So you need to either borrow the money or have made the money back on the investment that you had made of the initial product that you were producing. So this is Moore's Law in action. You know, that's why we have ASICs right now and we're not still mining on CPUs because of Moore's Law. And that's going to continue, at least on the mining side. And I think that as long as we are continuing to have it in the public space, we are just barely scratching the surface with how many people can be getting into this space and it's still being profitable for everybody. You know, there are, at last count, I think it was like 5,000 live currencies right now. I don't know how many miners they have on them or, you know, which ones still have live dev groups and shit like that, but let's say it's 10%, so 500 live cryptocurrencies. I'm sure there's one out there that you look at the values behind the coin, the people that are involved in the coin, and you say, you know what, I believe in what they're doing enough. I can see potential in them continuing on. They have a pretty good track record so far. I'm going to dedicate some hashing power. And over time, you will see that your addition of hashing power also drew the interest of other people wanting to put in hashing power in there because it looked like you were making some money. And so now you've got to fucking compete with them. So you got to add some more hashing power to the network. And now you're making even more money per coin because they've gone up from 80 Satoshis a coin up to 90 Satoshis a coin. There hasn't been a block halving yet, so you're still humming along pretty damn good. That's the game, kids. That is the game. We're taking the whole transaction processing out of the hands of third-party intermediaries and just giving it to everybody who wants to transact in our coin. And that's a point I think everybody keeps forgetting. You know, they look at the big shiny with Bitcoin and they see that it's going up in value, but it's also losing some practicality because the network isn't scaling up. And when I say scaling up, I'm not talking about this segregated witness lightning network bullshit. That's not scaling up the Bitcoin network. That's going off the fucking Bitcoin network with the scale bullshit. That's what that is. That's enriching a third party to do all your transactions for you. You know, it's like I watched something on the Lightning Network today at the behest of somebody on Twitter, and was very entertained because I found at least 2 points that proved exactly the point that I had been arguing to him for about, I don't know, at least an hour, maybe 2 hours, maybe longer. I don't know. I spent a lot of time doing it today. But he posted this video to me, and I watched it, and I'm pretty sure I had watched it before in like the custodial thing, and they talk about, there being a third party involved, a rich third party, and they named him Bob, right? And so I told this guy at one point, Bob is a bank. It's like people assume that because the presentation is being given in very, how should I say this, very broad, non-specific terms, that they don't have a specific entity in mind with their design. And I mean, the fucking diagram on the guy's slideshow clearly shows, 2 parties, one that's the payer and one that's the payee, and then somebody in the middle. That's a third party intermediary. As a matter of fact, the person used the term trusted node to refer to this guy. What differentiates a trusted node from a non-trusted node? Could it possibly be some sort of, I don't know, maybe money transmitter license and, a supposedly proven reserve of, several thousand Bitcoin or tens of thousands Bitcoin? Who is this entity? For all you know, it's Roger Ver himself. He's got a lot of fucking Bitcoin. He can afford to upfront your transactions for the next year, or 2 years, or 10 years, or however long it takes you to spend 1 Bitcoin. People are just not fucking thinking, man. Just not fucking thinking at all. It's just, and it's not like the information isn't available. I mean, I'm finding it. I'm not so like deep into the shit. Well, I kind of am, really. I shouldn't say that. I have certain intuitions and certain knowledge because of my involvement, the depth of my involvement and the length of my involvement. But as far as like, I don't run a bank. I don't run some brokerage or some shit like that. I just happen to know value when I see it. And it also gives me the ability to evaluate shit and determine whether or not it's bullshit. So, like I said, we are on the verge of seeing mining becoming very, very ubiquitous and very, very widespread. And I think that that's really the direction that Bitcoin needs to be going on, is to try and enhance the level of participation of miners. Rather than using every single fucking opportunity possible to villainize miners and complain about how much control they have over their hardware. We should be trying to involve as many fucking miners as possible. More miners equals fewer hops equals more integrity of the transactions. I mean, come on now, people. More miners is a more secure network. And when we look and we see what's going on with like ICOs and stuff, that's a response. That's liquidity that wants to get in the game, but you're doing all of these prohibitive behaviors saying, no, we don't want more miners on the network. We don't want more miners. We don't want to compete with their difficulty rise. We want to make extraordinary profits and kick everybody else out. Well, you know what? They're trying to kick you out now. You fucking get that? Quit pulling this shit where you make hardware, but You take the hardware and you hook it up to the fucking network and you run it for 2 months before you give it to the person that you're selling it to. Or you're running the spec 2 months before you provide it out to the market. That's fucking bullshit. You need to take a fucking side. Either be a miner or be a hardware manufacturer. Either get in the goddamn hole and dig for the gold, or make shovels. One of the fucking two. I mean, when I started seeing that with Butterfly Labs, I'm like, oh, this will not end well. Because we're going to end up with hardware manufacturers just saying, oh, fuck the world, we just cranked out 100,000 miners. Why the fuck are we going to send them 8,000 miles across the ocean when we could just hook them up right here to this hydroelectric dam or this gas-powered plant or this coal-powered plant? And nobody else is using all this electricity. Fuck it, let's do it. We're going to make $1 bazillion fucking dollars on all the Bitcoin that we mine. We're going to have this massive advantage over people. I mean, come on, man. It's a real fun game to play until you start seeing how it impacts the rest of the market. When you start shifting away from just mining, I mean, or just being a hardware manufacturer, you start seeing discontinuities in the rest of the market. Here we are. If you had spent that time just rather than laughing and playing and enjoying all the lucre that you're making off of your mining profits, you were maybe spending some time in your R&D department trying to, make the next iteration of miners that much cheaper, that much faster, that much cooler. And when I say cooler, I mean, they don't get as hot. Not that they look really sleek like a Mac iBook or some shit like that. But the point being that you should have been spending that time trying to onboard more people into the mining part of the networks. I mean, the mining parts of the networks. That's why you're looking at the villainized miners now, and Ethereum getting all of these GPUs on it. I mean, they're really they're on the verge of competing with Bitcoin as far as actual hashing power being dedicated to their network. And it's because they don't have the bar of ASICs and saying, we're just going to let these guys crowd everybody in. The practicality of being able to be profitable on GPUs. Look at how that's impacting the market. It's saving the asses of the Venezuelans right now. And I expect when Zimbabwe really starts getting with it, and Singapore, that we're going to see a lot more GPU mining there as well, in those places. This thing with regard to Singapore and their increasing interest in mining, that's not going to stop. That is not going to stop. And again, I'm going to say it again, we are going to see a major shift from the concentration of mining being done in China. I've said it probably a couple years now. As soon as it became an issue, I started saying to people, look back, we just a couple months ago we were bitching about Ghash.io and their 51%, and everybody worried that they were going to fork the network and they were going to become the longest chain and they were going to rule the fucking world. No, that didn't fucking happen. But what did happen? As soon as they got, I think it was like 49 or 50% of the hashing, like people started moving their hashing power to other pools. They moved over to Slush Pool. They moved some over to Ant Pool, some over to BTCC. They moved all over the fucking place. And that dispersed the concentration of hashing power. So, here we are again, where we're looking at China's dominance being challenged. And not just from Singapore. They're actually having a policy change. And like I said, I had that open in a previous browsing session, so I'm going to dig that up. And on the other side of the music break, we're going to go into that a little bit, because I saw more than one article about that today. But actually, I want to get in on this other article about Singapore before we do that, though. But I mean, we're going to get into music right now, and then when we get back, we'll talk about Singapore, and then back over to China. And so, with regard to what song to play, I don't know, I haven't been getting any suggestions from my Telegram. What the hell, people? I do requests. I'll admit it. Let's go with something from the Transnational Speedway here by Clutch, a shogun named Marcus, here on Coin Metal. And that was Ministry with Punch in the Face. Yeah, every once in a while, sometimes you just gotta hit some dude in the face. Anyway, apparently, the initial report that I was going to put on here might have been a teeny tiny bit premature. However, we're not going to give up on this strain of thought that we had gone on before the music break started there. And this one is on channelnewsasia.com. More Singaporeans riding on cryptocurrency wave on soaring Bitcoin prices. This is by Janice Lim. No penis. Business. Singapore. It looks like a simple gaming computer, but Mr. Dexter NG and his group of friends realized that it was able to produce cryptocurrencies through a process called mining. Armed with a powerful graphics processing unit, these computers are able to solve complex math problems, which will gain the user rewards in the form of cryptocurrencies like the Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just one of many cryptocurrencies out in the market, but is currently the most highly valued. Bitcoin price soars. Its price soared to a record high of nearly $7,500 on November 8th, compared with around $1,000 at the beginning of this year, and it has therefore generated greater investor interest among Singaporeans. Bitcoin's popularity has trickled down to other alternative coins, like Ether and Litecoin, sparking interest in cryptocurrency mining in general. So far, Mr. NG and his friends built more powerful mining computers and started selling them. Quote, "Then we posted photos online on Facebook, and people started asking how much is this, and they wanted to buy it off." The 29-year-old said, quote, "So I sold it to people who queried on Facebook. And after a while, we started selling many on Facebook, so we decided to incorporate this company." Mr. NG said that the sales of rigs have shot up in recent months. The company used to sell about 15 rigs per month in July this year, but it is now selling 100 rigs per month. Customers come in and order 50 rigs on their own. Compared to last time, probably one person only buys one or two. Now we get customers who buy 10, 20, or even 50, he added. Called Mining.sg, the company in Grayling, Lorong 23, boasts 1,100 square feet office space and that can house up to 45 rigs. Each rig can fetch from $5,000 Singaporean dollars to 6,500 Singaporean dollars, depending on its processing power. Trading of cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies can be traded on exchanges for cash, and as the hype over cryptocurrency grows, exchanges that operate in Singapore are reporting greater activity as investors jump on the bandwagon. One such exchange, CoinHako, told Channel News Asia that the number of users using the platform has doubled since the beginning of this year. Another exchange platform, Coin, spelled with a Q, said it has seen double-digit growth in the demand for cryptocurrencies since the beginning of this year, with Bitcoin seeing the highest increase in demand. Mr. Ian Chan, who bought a rig 3 months ago, says there are 3 factors to consider when mining cryptocurrencies for investment. Calculating the percentage of return is one thing, but what if this machine every day gives me an issue where I need to debug or whatever, he said. Then to me, I am buying something that I need to work on every day. From that angle, if I start buying 20 units, then my problem is multiplied 20 times. So I start with 1, try it out, and if it is good, then I slowly increase my investment in that. Mr. Chan's rig is currently mining a cryptocurrency called Zcash. All the coins in his rig mines. All the coins his rig mines go into a virtual wallet, which he can then choose to cash out or store in the hopes that its value will rise in the future. The amount of Zcash his rig mines currently gives him an income of about $300 a month. After removing the additional electricity cost that comes with having a rig running 24/7 in his home, Mr. Chan estimates that he would take about 2 years to break even. His 13-year-old son, Ryu, also now has his own mining rig. While the soaring prices of Bitcoin might be a sign that this alternative form of investment is gaining investor confidence, there are concerns over whether the rise is too much too fast. Mr. Thomas McMahon doesn't think that the Bitcoin prices are in a bubble. Quote, If you look at it statistically, it's actually probably still really cheap in terms of an asset class, said Mr. McMahon, who is the founder of Clear, a digital commodities platform that is built on blockchain, the technology that underlies the use of cryptocurrencies. Pfft. Okay, dude. Are we talking about the Bitcoin blockchain or his own blockchain? I don't know. But not everyone agrees. Cryptocurrency researcher Stanley Young said, the price going up is probably a bubble, given that it has reached more than $7,000 per Bitcoin. And the question for us is not whether it is a bubble, but how long this bubble will be there. And whether that speculation will result in a correction that will be painful and destructive versus a correction that is healthy. Moz won't regulate cryptocurrencies. The Monetary Authority of Singapore told Bloomberg last month that it will not regulate cryptocurrencies, but that it will monitor activities around these coins and decide what are the risks which would require regulation. So while the jury is out on whether cryptocurrencies will be accepted into the mainstream, industry watchers generally agree that Bitcoin's recent price surge is not purely speculative. Part of its rise is based on some economic fundamentals. The belief that the blockchain technology underlying these virtual currencies has the potential to disrupt the economy. That's not true at all. The belief is that we have an alternative to our depreciating and devaluating national currencies. That's why. Continuing on. Quote, blockchain itself is revolutionary technology. It's really a systemic shift, said Mr. McMahon. Blockchain is essentially a chain of blocks, each of them containing a set of data. Oh, really specific there, dude. A set of data. These blocks are stored in a distributed ledger, so unlike a centralized one, there is no one authority over it. Instead, every user in the network has access to the data stored in the ledger, and it cannot be changed by anyone. Quote, the ledger architecture that sits on the backbone of blockchain, of Bitcoin, you fucks, has an incredibly innate ability to create an irrefutable, immutable retention of data in perpetuity, Mr. McMahon added. If Bitcoin is the way of the future, it is no surprise then that some are betting big on cryptocurrencies. But Mr. Young also cautioned that investors should be discerning if they're looking to put their money into cryptocurrency businesses that are built on Bitcoin. Not all of them are equal. Not all of them are based on new economic models. Even when a promoter of such cryptocurrency is to point to something innovative, there is no sure win in many of these cases. Even when there is no intent to commit fraud, even when the people behind the cryptocurrency are sincere in their intention, there is always a high chance of failure, Mr. Young said. Whether cryptocurrencies are the future or just a fad, experts say that, as with all forms of investment, investors should do their homework and understand the risks before diving in. I couldn't agree more. So yeah, very interesting. Some of this is worth paying attention to, some of it isn't. I get offended when people talk about blockchain apart from Bitcoin, because they're part of this, like, this mimetic army that are trying to reshape the mentality behind the way we think about Bitcoin. You know, they don't want you to think about it as something that you are participating in, as somebody processing transactions, 10-minute blocks of transactions, not just quote-unquote blocks of data. Give me a fucking break. What is the data? I mean, really, did you bother to study up on that? Or did you, oh, it's a block of data. It's a chain of blocks of data. Give me a fucking break, man. Why do you keep the data? What's so important about it? Oh, it's only a transaction log of all the transactions that have occurred on the network. That's something worthy of note, don't you think? It's not all that terribly difficult to communicate. I just did. Anyway, it's similar to that mimetic drift I talk about a lot on this show, because I actually have been here long enough to see it happen. And it didn't happen in just one day or 1 month or even a year. It happened over, well, the 8-year history of Bitcoin so far. Oh, sorry about that. It's that run is catching up with me, sucking all the oxygen out of my blood. Not moving around enough. Anyway, I think that we are going to continue to see an interest in Bitcoin mining, and this bump in Singapore is just a blip. That eventually we're going to be seeing more interest in, like, Venezuela. We're going to see more interest in the South and Central American countries, and yeah, they've been kicking some ass there with regard to that. They've already gotten to the next phase where their government has stopped trying to stop them from mining, because it's actually keeping their economy afloat and keeping people alive. And the benefit of having it is more than trying to crack down on it so far. But anyway, I want to get a little bit of caffeine into my system here, and so I am going to drop back down into some music. Let's get some blood pumping here. A little bit of suffocation here on Coin Metal. A little clarity through deprivation here on Coin Metal. And that was Prong with Windows Shut. And unfortunately, I didn't actually get around to putting that up on Twitter. Jeez. Unfortunately, I cannot be in multiple places at once. With all of my capabilities and prescience, that's just not one of them. I don't know what it is. Anyway, apparently there was a little bit of a scare about China and their mining and their ability to do so. And I'm kind of wondering how to go about this here. Fuck it, let's start it where I heard about it first. And this is on Bitcoin.com under news. Chinese hydroelectric crackdown could herald the demise of cheap Bitcoin mining. Chinese Bitcoin miners are the latest tranche of the country's cryptocurrency community to be hit by restrictions. This time, it's not the government, but a subsidiary of the government, of the State Grid Corporation, that has issued the decree, in a move which calls into question the country's ability to sustain Bitcoin mining operations. At present, both the Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash networks are heavily dependent on the efforts of Chinese miners, who hold over 80% of the hash rate distribution. A major miner incident. The cryptocurrency space has grown accustomed to the words Chinese crackdown being appended to one another. This year they've already been applied to ICOs and exchanges within the country, and it is no secret that the government isn't enamored with mining either. According to Beijing's Caijin magazine, hydropower stations have been ordered to cease all supply of electricity to customers involved in Bitcoin mining. Bitcoin mining has long been beyond the preserve of hobbyists, meaning that the only entities affected by the utility company crackdown will be the operators of large mining farms. Sichuan Electric Power Company, a national supplier based in Chengdu in the southwest, has issued an edict declaring that it is henceforth illegal to supply electricity for Bitcoin mining operations. Hydropower stations found to be flouting this order will be subject to, quote, punishment. The end of cheap power? Sichuan province is China's Bitcoin mining heartland. It is here that warehouses filled with row upon row of ASIC miners, mainly powered by cheap hydroelectricity, can be found. The province is prized for its mountainous regions and vast flowing rivers and tributaries that have given rise to hydroelectric dams large and small. During times of peak electricity generation, hydro plants have been left with a surplus. Up until recently, that excess water had gone to waste. Bitcoin mining provided a solution to that wastage, enabling hydroelectric stations to make money and providing miners with cheap electricity. It was a symbiotic relationship that worked for both parties until now. Shut it down. The decree issued by Sichuan Electric Power Company doesn't outlaw Bitcoin mining. It should be noted. What it does is signal an end to direct deals being cut between hydro plants and mining farms. If hydro plants heed the warning, it could herald an end to cheap Bitcoin mining in China. Without a steady supply of cheap power, mining profits may dwindle, and eventually it is no longer profitable to keep rigs running. The crackdown shouldn't affect larger mining operations such as Bitmain, who already have a deal in place to acquire electricity at competitive rates. For smaller mining operations, which make the most of Sichuan's rainy season, however, it could be game over. With winter approaching, a time when many hydroelectric plants power down, Sichuan's mining farms would have been geared up for a switch to more expensive sources of power in any case. The latest proclamation from Sichuan Electric Power Company won't herald the end of Chinese mining, but it may hasten its retreat to pastures newly equipped with cheap power sources and zero state-level intervention. There has been speculation for some time that given the legislative uncertainty surrounding Bitcoin mining in China, the major pools may jump ship and take their operations overseas. Uprooting a major mining farm is no minor feat, however, and this is an inconvenience and expense that miners could do without. With the mining climate becoming increasingly unfavorable in China, the doors open for another region to emerge as the new frontier in Bitcoin mining. The smart money is on Russia to heed that call and take the reins. That's interesting. We're going to go ahead and click on that one, because that sounds like it could be promising there. And that was the end of the article. So yeah, this was like the early warning on this, okay? And this is on Bitcoin.com, and looking at this hydroelectric dam, I could see they need some improvement with the way that they're going about it. Not to say that we in the United States are doing it any better or any more intelligently, but I don't know. I have a different mentality when it comes to hydroelectricity and and river systems in general. See, I think you can actually generate more hydroelectricity if you're trying to mimic the river as much as possible. Now, with regard to the construction of dams, of course you want them above river level so you can maximize the amount of water pressure on the other side. But if you don't preserve the link between the ocean and the land, what you're going to end up with is that, like, my theory on all of this is that anadromous species, meaning species that go out to the ocean and live their lives and then come back and spawn in fresh water, they're why we have forests and stuff along the rivers, because when the rivers drain down during the spring and the fall, their carcasses feed the ground. You know, all the nitrogen that's in that topsoil, that's where it comes from. Is from living organisms, you know, living, feeding, crapping, dying above the dirt there, you know, while the water is there. And then when the water drains down, if they are anadromous, a lot of them, they complete their life cycle after they spawn. So they go up, they have sex, and it's over. One time. Just that's it. Some of them will go up and do their thing and then come back out. But even in the process of doing that, they die. They get poached by fish, they get poached by birds, they get poached by bears, they get poached by all kinds of other things depend on them coming back up the river. And so say like a bear, he'll get a hold of a salmon, or she'll get a hold of a salmon, and she'll take it back to her cubs, right? And so she'll take it, you know, maybe a mile away from the river, and all the while she's excreting, you know, she's breaking up the ground as she's walking, because she's kind of heavy and whatnot. And she eats the salmon, she feeds it to her cubs. They go outside the warren and they go out there and they crap. That whole process nourishes the ground that the forests grow on. You know, no fish, no nitrogen in the topsoil, desertification. I'm watching it happen here in the Pacific Northwest, because, you know, we're at threat of losing our salmon runs. And basically, if we didn't have hatcheries up here, we'd lose like another, I would say, probably 30-40%, if not more, of our salmon and steelhead runs because we block the fish off from the places that they normally spawn. You know, whether we're talking about above where the dams are placed or in the tributaries that the former riverbed would fill. You know, we've built tract housing and that shit now. But, you know, in my mind, there's an actual fix. And I saw something on a documentary about Russia's Chinook thing, where they do have runs of Chinook salmon. They don't get as big as the ones here, but they do have plentiful runs. And if you look at the design of their dam where they interface into the river, it's seamless. The fish just go right up into the lake. And they go above where the dam is. The lake is still there. The lake provides the water that they need during the summer and all that crap. But the fish are still able to get to where they need to go to spawn. And I think that, you know, when I see this design here on this article, I don't see the fish being able to get up above the dam. But I can see forest, and I can tell you that the forest is probably older than the dam. But it's not. if they do something to block it off like that without allowing for the fish being able to get around the dam, they're not going to have a forest. And while it's not visible in this scene right here, it may in fact exist. There might be, you know, some creek or river that runs from the lake down to the river below, which is probably an ideal situation. But just the same, it doesn't show it in the scene. Anyway, this was the first article that I'd read concerning this business, and I thought it was kind of, how should I say it, fear-mongery from the get-go, but only because I can't read the notice, the actual notice. They got a picture of it here, and it's written in Chinese, so that kind of cuts my ability to read it out. Anyway, I did come across something else, though, that kind of counters this. And this was on CoinDesk. So it really depends on who you want to believe, Bitcoin.com or CoinDesk. Both of them have competing interests, so something to keep in mind. Chinese power provider denies Bitcoin mining ban. And this is by Wolfie Zhao, and I'm assuming from the picture, yes, penis. This is written November 14th, 2017 at 3 p.m. UTC. A state-owned electric utility in China is rebuffing rumors that Bitcoin mining has been deemed illegal by the government. Rumors spread in the past day based on a circulated document indicating that the country's state grid was moving to ban Bitcoin mining at a country level in Sichuan province, an ostensibly notable development given the area's abundant water supply for electricity generation and the fact that profit-chasing Bitcoin miners are headquartered in the region. A translated version of the document states that, quote, Bitcoin mining is an illegal activity, further adding that, quote, each state grid-connected generator that is involved in powering Bitcoin mining is also regarded as an illegal practice, which shall be prohibited. The document includes the official stamp of the state grid's Danba County branch, located in Sichuan. Though quickly circulated and reported by Chinese local media, raising questions about whether such a decision may signal an administration move against Bitcoin mining, one that would follow crackdowns on initial coin offerings and the exchange-based trading of cryptocurrencies against the Chinese yuan. Subsequent statements indicate that the fears may be overblown. According to the Chinese business publication Caixin, Local executives from the county branch confirmed the authenticity of the report, but clarified it's only an internal memo and some of the phrases were drafted incorrectly. It is also important to note that the document comes from a county branch instead of a statewide level, thus diminishing the weight it may carry. Quote, "We are a state-owned enterprise, not an administrative branch that has the power to determine whether Bitcoin mining is legitimate or not," the county branch told the publication. The firm went on to clarify that some of these small generators in the region may have violated agreements that prioritize electrical supplies for local residents before businesses such as Bitcoin miners. At the same time, such a decision may also signal a conflict between the state grid's county branch and the individual generators over the profits they make through Bitcoin mining. It's a fight for the interests of hydropower stations, Jiang Zhuer, founder of China's mining pool, BTC Top, told CoinDesk. Yeah, that sounds pretty astute, really. That the Chinese government might be saying, "Hey, look, these fuckers are getting around us, man. We gotta horn in on it somehow." But I don't know. I don't think this is going to work out quite the way that they want to. Only because we're already seeing what happens with the United States, where you have regulators and whatnot hammering down on bank accounts and even legitimate bank accounts of people that are involved in cryptocurrency. And I mean, I can attest to this one because I had a bank account with a bank with a local community credit union, and they'd opened the account knowing that I'd had a previous charge off, and it's kind of interesting because I had the account for months, really, and there was actually, I think I'd probably even had it long enough for them to issue me a second card. And all of a sudden, after I managed to get one of my cryptocurrency accounts hooked up to it, they suddenly terminated the account. No explanation. And then I went back and I talked to them about it, and they're like, "Oh, well, it's because of this previous charge-off. Maybe if you resolve that, we'll be able to reopen your account." Like, give me a fucking break, man. You knew that was there before. There was no issue with the account as I was maintaining it. So, what gives? And I can almost guarantee you, it's, they got the notice from the Bitcoin exchange that I intended to hook it up to. And no, fuck you. We're not going to carry that shit. So, I don't know. I see some interesting things happen with regard to that I'm not the only one that's experiencing that kind of shit. And I don't know. I don't know what to think of it. Over the longer term, I don't think it will bode well, because in my mind it's just pushing more of the innovation and more of the development and more of the money involved outside of the United States, and I don't see that being very good for us here. Especially because it does seem like the rest of the world is trying to circumvent the United States as far as involvement in the world economy. I mean, developments like the BRICS, that's not something to be taken casually. I mean, that's like getting right into our doorstep there with the Brazilian market being just south of us. That's fucking craziness. But we kind of earned it. I'm not gonna say we didn't. But I think that we need to get more willing to accept the idea of further decentralization. That we've allowed certain manufacturers dominate too much of the construction of our lifestyles. And that things like AI, things like 3D printing, these are developments beckoning us further into the manufacturing space. I mean, because think about how many manufacturing steps you can displace with a few 3D printers. You could probably cut your manufacturing size down to 1/100th of what you needed, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And when you add to that things like AI to figure out your statistical process control against your actual demand, you can cut your storage interval down to days, maybe weeks. You'll do things like bulk your standby a few multiples just because of things like Christmas and maybe birth trends for birthdays and shit like that, depending on what your product is. But I think that we can cut down a lot on things like warehousing and other issues that have caused us to, be inhibited from enjoying a lot of the new developments coming out. It's like there's a lag time that's being imposed on us because of these limitations on manufacturing that are stopping a lot of things from happening at the pace that they could be happening at. And I reflect back on the development of mining chips as a good example of that. If we were using 3D printing technologies on a more ubiquitous and ground level, I think that we wouldn't see the bottleneck in supply for new and faster and cooler miners. I think that we would see an opening in that. And a good example of that is there was a brief period of time when Apple, when they were in a quandary as to how they wanted to go further into the future with Apple Computer. They're like, we want to stick with PowerPC. No, we want to go over to this other I can't remember if it was like G Power or something processor. And they were iterations of one. The G series processors were PowerPC processors to begin with. They've morphed over into Intel-based processors now, but originally the product chain was to go through, I think, the G8 that they had prototype specs for. I think they only made it to like a G5 before they switched over to Intel-based processors. But anyway, there was this period before they let Jobs back in. And I kind of fixate on it because that's where I was able to buy a Macintosh, because at the time, if you wanted to buy the computer that I wanted from them, it would have been like $5,000. I got it for half that. And I know that sounds fucking ludicrous for, a regular old desktop, but that's just how the market was. And again, back to Moore's Law on that. But the point being that they got to this spot and they didn't know how to get past that 66 megahertz board throughput layer issue, which I don't think we have anymore. I don't think that's actually an issue anymore. But there was a time when that was the cap limit on board throughput, 66 megahertz. And so they were trying to, break that as far as the throughput from the processor to the motherboard and back, right? And so they were hung on this design issue, and so they said, all right, we're going to license out the ability to make Macintoshes to third parties. But here's the thing. We're going to make everybody sign this agreement that If you guys come up with anything really new and, really paradigm shifting, we get carte blanche on any new development. We get first bid on it. And so there were, I think, 6 or 7 major suppliers in the United States at least. And I know they were expanded into other markets too, because they had the details on the outside of the box for the Power PC that I got in 5 different languages. So I know it was multinational. But the point being is there was 6 manufacturers that took up this challenge. And 3 of them came out with a radical new caching technology that allowed for multiple threads and multiple channels to be pumping at 66 megahertz, which simulated the additional throughput so instead of 66 megahertz, you effectively have 122 or whatever it was, or 132. But anyway, the point being that that kind of thing being brought down to the individual level, the capability there, I think that's something we need to be concentrating on and harnessing more as we go into the future, because at least part of the problem with regard to manufacturing is the scale, because the size, the bigger you go, the harder it is to make hard 90-degree angle turns on your manufacturing. You can't just stop the whole fab, go back down to it, put a whole bunch of filters in it that change your affluent coming out of your smokestacks to where it's not as contaminant filled and whatnot, and then fire the thing back up. You just can't afford to do that. You've got the thing running 24/7. You've got 3 crews of people running through it in 24 hours. You can't afford that downtime. But now, if you're a smaller operation, you could afford. You could factor in maybe a downtime day every month. You could factor that into where it's okay, let's review our production over this last month or over the previous month and figure out how we want to do some upgrades that we can cut down on our emissions, we can cut down on our liquid waste, we can cut down on our solid waste, from milling or lathing or anything like that. And that I think would be more rewarding with our current situation. I think the world economy, for the most part, is kind of slowing down in some ways. I mean, we're seeing expansion here in cryptocurrencies, but it's because nobody else has any money. And we're the ones saying, hey, we got a bunch of shit that we can circulate as liquidity, and you can continue to fucking live, because your banks have got all the fucking money. They're not giving it to you for anything. And because you're under such regulated burden, you have such a regulatory burden for entry into so many industries, it's why even bother? The apathy sets in, and you don't even bother to go to a bank to check to see if you can get a business loan. You just don't do it. It just doesn't occur to you. It's fuck, I'll go down to McDonald's and flip hamburgers or something. Yeah. I don't know. I find that the idea of doing such a thing in this day and age kind of saddening. And one time I looked at it as just a way to buy fishing tackle, but, priorities change over time. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And, I don't know, I'm hearing some Sixth. And I actually kind of like this song, so let's go ahead and throw it down. Where Did We Fall? Here on Coin Metal. And that was Left Behind by Slipknot. And so, as we've been talking about mining so much, there's this other little link that I found here about Russia, of all places, And so yeah, we're just going to dive into it. I got actually a couple articles that I want to cover on this and try and squeeze them in before we close out. And this one is on news.bitcoin.com. Russia has found best location for crypto miners. And this was written 2 days ago by Kevin Helms. No picture, but I'm going by the name. Yes, penis. The Russian Association of Blockchain and Cryptocurrency has conducted a study to determine the best location for cryptocurrency mining in the country. The Russian Association conducted a study of attractiveness of Russian regions for cryptocurrency mining. Local publications reported on Monday. This association was formed to unite blockchain participants as well as owners, miners, and investors of cryptocurrencies and initial coin offerings. Its information was announced in August by President Vladimir Putin's advisor on internet issues, Herman Klemenko. The association's president, Yuri Propachkin, told RBC that, quote, the association compared the regions by such parameters as the cost of electricity, the availability of free reserve capacities, logistics accessibility, and the development of telecommunications infrastructure. According to its findings, the Krasnoyarsk territory, my apologies on that, I just butchered that, scores best overall. Krasnoyarsk is the largest territory in the Russian Federation and the second largest federal subject. Its area spans 2,339,700 square kilometers, or approximately 903,400 square miles. Its administrative center is the city of Krasnoyarsk, the third largest city in Siberia with a population of about 1 million. Krasnoyarsk territory, best overall. The cost of electricity in this region is 2.41 rubles per kilowatt hour, the news outlet wrote, which is worth about 4 US cents. Even though this region scores best overall, it does not have the cheapest electricity. Two regions nearby have cheaper electricity. Kayakazia, that's 2.1 rubles, and Irkutsk, 2.14 rubles. In terms of logistics and telecommunications capabilities, 3 cities in the Krasnoyarsk territory score the best: Krasnoyarsk, Divnogorsk, and Zelenogorsk, the news outlet detailed. In addition, water from the Yenisei River river water can be used as a coolant for the mining farms. Propachkin explained that the energy reserves of the Krasnoyarsk territory are 9,000 megawatts, citing that the region is also a major transport and distribution center, as well as a transit hub to the Siberian Federal District. He elaborated. Despite favorable conditions, almost no one is engaged in mining in the Krasnoyarsk territory. The main farms in Russia are located in Moscow, Leningrad, Novosibirsk, Irkutsk, Sverdlovsk, Tomsk, Chenyal. I'm not even gonna. And Tatarstan. I can pronounce that one. Other locations with favorable mining conditions, according to the RACIB's research, include the city of St. Petersburg and Nizhny Novgorod, Rostov, Samara, Sakhalin and Autonomous Okrug and Tula regions. Recently, news.bitcoin.com reported on the governor of the Leningrad region inviting cryptocurrency miners to set up mining farms in its new techno park. In addition, RACIB revealed last week that 40 companies from China and the European Union have applied to set up mining equipment to mine Bitcoin in Russia. Whew! See? The shit's changing. We're starting to see some people wanting to migrate mining out of China, including the Chinese. I mean, and let's consider that in a little bit better context here. You know, China has enough difficulty trying to regulate the miners within their national borders. Now, imagine if their national miners are expanding out into Russia. How much less control are they going to have over the distribution of those funds and the control of the return ratio of yuan or yen or whatever it is that they're exchanging for Bitcoin? So, they're doing the initial upfront investment in whatever it is, whether it be Bitcoin or yen or whatever. But they're not necessarily going to be seeing the direct and full return. And like I said, because they're in Russia, they're outside the national borders, they have that much less control over what those miners are actually going to be doing. So, yeah, that's one. And then I got one more here. And this one is also on news.bitcoin.com. Serbabank apologizes for buying nearly all graphics cards on the Russian market. Gotta love this. Sberbank, the largest bank in Russia and third largest in Europe, is majority owned by the Russian government. According to Senior Vice President Alexander Vedyakin, the bank's research lab was behind the dry spell. RIA Novosti reported on Saturday, quote, "The reason for the deficit in the video card market was Sberbank buying up video cards for its laboratory of artificial intelligence. Quote, we invest very much in technology, and we should, incidentally, apologize for that shortage in the video card market, which recently occurred because we bought them for the laboratory of artificial intelligence," Vedyakin said at Sberbank International Conference on Data Analysis, Machine Learning, and Artificial Intelligence. However, he indicated that soon the shortage will be over because we have satisfied our need. Is Sberbank mining cryptocurrency? While Sberbank has said it is, quote, not yet ready to use cryptocurrency, the bank admitted to studying it in detail, according to Stanislav Kuznetsov, deputy chairman of executive board of Sberbank. Sberbank does not intend to use cryptocurrency in business yet, but is studying them to protect itself from scammers, Taz reported and quoted Kuznetsov saying last month at the World Festival of Youth and Students in Sochi. Quote, "We are not afraid of cryptocurrencies, but in order to defend ourselves, we must understand in detail how scammers operate. We must study each step. Today, we are deeply studying this topic, but unfortunately, there are no solutions yet. How to proceed further, and we are not yet ready to use cryptocurrency." Shortage of graphics cards in Russia. The Chinese online trading platform AliExpress, an eBay-like subsidiary of Alibaba, reported in June that there was a surge in demand for video cards in Russia for cryptocurrency mining. AliExpress associated a surge of interest in video cards with the desire to use them to generate cryptocurrency, the publication emphasized, adding that, quote, "The trading platform reported that its users began to look more actively for specific models of video cards that are most suitable for creating crypto farms, i.e. GeForce GTX 1060, GTX 1070, and Radeon RX 480, and the number of Bitcoin miner requests increased 150% in a month. Prior to Sir Bank's confession, RT reported that, quote, the recent surge in value of Bitcoin has caused a jump in demand for video cards which are used in cryptocurrency mining. In addition, quote, people buy up to 600 video cards at once, the publication detailed, noting that this has caused nearly an 80% price surge since spring. According to Vodomosti, the spike in demand has caused the price of graphics cards to rise, quote, by an average of twice. For example, a device that cost in spring 16,000 to 18,000 rubles now costs more than 30,000. The news outlet added that one store promised that the cards can be ordered within a week, while another said it would take 10 days. Do you think Sir Bank is mining cryptocurrencies? What do you think of them buying up most graphic cards in Russia? Let us know in the comments section below. And no, we are not going to. So yeah, there you go. Two major shifts in the mining sector, Singapore and Russia. And again, this is going to dilute some of China's dominance in this space. I'd really like to see Americans getting on board with the mining movement as well. You know, both just to boost our interest in generating cheap forms of electricity, and because, you know, we really need to catch up with this whole mining gig, or the rest of the world is just going to circumvent us entirely. Not just a little bit, just completely. You know, they're already restructuring their trade routes and whatnot to get around us that way. It's only a matter of time before we are seeing them just saying, oh, you know, we don't necessarily need to supply your demand anymore, so, you know, you guys just figure it out, okay? We're gonna do this over here. We're gonna trade with the rest of the world and just kind of you know, say goodnight, Irene. Anyway, it is with that I'd like to close this episode out. I will do my best to get it up on YouTube as fast as humanly possible. We will be back again on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And, you know, I'd like to thank you all very much for listening. I do appreciate the support. Anyway, like I said, we will be back again on Friday. And so until then, I want you all to trade safe. Do your homework! Watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody is going to do it for you. Thank you very much for listening, and y'all have an excellent evening. We're going to go ahead and close it out with a little bit of 9 Inch Nails. Big man with a big gun. Here on Coin Metal. Bye.